what we do at deltaDNA every year, we get to the start of the year, we look back at the last 12 months and we try and figure out what we learned. Because the games industry, as you guys all know, is learning rapidly, and the speed of progress on the use of data, the capabilities in analytics, the great games that are built now. It's transformational from when we started the business. It really is. When we started the business, it's probably true to say that we were trying to save fundamentally flawed games. But now we're improving great games, brilliant games, and these games last for years. So it's been a real journey for us, and we did something a little bit different this year, and we looked over the last 2-year period. We kind of tried to put into context where the industry is now compared to 2 years ago. So I'll go quite quickly through this. There's a few slides, but you know, we all know in the room that making games is hard. Free to play is a tough business. Getting your LTVs above your user acquisition costs is sometimes excruciatingly painful. You know, and there's this mentality that you got to be at the top of the charts to be making really good money, and it seems like it's hard to kind of crack into those guys because they're always there and they're everlasting. So that's one thing. It costs a lot of money to do this. It's not just about getting your game to launch. There's a lot of player management, live ops. As these games last for a long time now, you've got to really think about the content over many, many months of time. And again, it takes a bit of time to get your money back. Even if you've got strong LTVs, you're spending a fortune on UA, and it's, you know, could be 50, 70 days before you get that money back. So it's a real sort of long-term view in the industry now, and the sustainability of these games is what's made a very big difference. So we all recognise that it's tough, but let's share with you some really incredible, dramatic, and good news. I think that the industry has found a level of sustainability, you know, that's unprecedented. So what we did was we looked at, and this is deltaDNA database data. We looked at 2016 revenues compared to 2018 revenues, and we reconciled them against the App Store position. So what you can see here is that at the top of the charts, the actual money hasn't gone up. It's still a lot of money. It's $100 million plus, but it's largely the same guys, it's largely the same people, and it's largely the same amount of money. Where the dramatic growth has been is in the mid-tier of the charts. So if you're at position 100 in 2016, you're making about $2 million a year. In 2018, that goes up to $5 million plus. You know, that's astonishing, really, more than double the amount of revenue. Even better news, if you're down at position 1,000, it's $250,000 here, going up to 2.5 million. So the 30% growth in the App Store revenues is actually being tilted to the mid-market, which is, you know, great news for most of you guys out here, and I think that it's dramatic in terms of the sustainability of games and the sustainability and the health of the industry overall. So that's, you know, that's really, really powerful, I think. And you know, what we're saying is, well, why is that the case? What has changed in what is quite a short period of time? And we did this, I have to say, on US and iOS just to get a consistency in the data. But you can see by these comparisons, the actual volume of players is largely the same. The ARPDAU is pretty much the same, slight increase. But then the next three stats are quite different. The conversion rate, so the spenders, has increased quite dramatically, 50% up. The number of repeat spenders has increased as well, so the average number of spends per player. People are getting kind of used to the game economy, the free-to-play economy. They're getting used to consuming ads, they're getting used to spending, you know, moderate amounts of money in games. So it's gone from 3 to 5. But the most dramatic thing is that, you know, people are playing for 50% longer. So the experiences that are being delivered are making people stick around, and we as an industry and deltaDNA as a company, we fascinate over day 1 retention, day 7 retention, day 30 retention. Now we're thinking, day 60, day 90, day 360 retention. That is relevant now. So that sort of long-term view and long-term management of the players and planning out your content to keep ahead of the player momentum is what's working really well. The other thing is that if you look at 2016 compared to 2018, the business model is, it's sorted itself out in terms of everybody's kind of voting for free to play now is the way ahead. I think Minecraft is the last remaining paid app at the top of the charts, whereas in 2016 it was 10%. So free to play is the accepted way to go. And part of the rationale of that is that the apparent risk in free to play has been diluted by us understanding the ingredients better, the recipe book. How can you make a good free to play experience that's going to engage your players, and they're going to consume ads, they're going to have a good experience, they're going to spend money to make the game sustainable. So that, I think, is fascinating as well. And the journey for free to play has also been one about ad strategies. And we've had clients that have moved their games from less than 20% ad income to over 65%. And it's the same game, essentially, but just having a balanced ad strategy, moving from a level of caution perhaps to having a well-balanced ad strategy. And this is another change, I think, in the dynamic of the interaction between the players and the developers, that people kind of assume ads are going to be in the game if you're not going to pay for them to be removed. It's part of the playing experience, and kind of there's a level of acceptance there now that games aren't really for free. There's nothing for free, and that sort of interchange, that value exchange, is an accepted part of the economy. So the number of games that are totally ad supported has doubled. Lots of hyper casual, lots of casual games that are driving high MAUs and becoming super successful. And when we started the business as well, it's fair to say that a lot of the analytics was done in beta. There's a lot of optimization, a lot of A/B testing, a lot of trying to figure out how are we going to get these metrics to mean that we've got a successful game. That's no longer true. Sure, there's a lot of work that happens in beta, but the real effort starts in the first 3-4 months after launch. Getting the game to a level of decent metrics. They don't have to be knockout metrics, but the game has to be sustainable. It has to be worth further investment. But what you can see here is that there's a totally different strategy in terms of acquisition and how you manage those first 3-4 months of learning post-launch. 2016 is the dashed line, so both on organic and paid, there's a decrease over the first sort of 4 to 6 months. So most of the games on the deltaDNA platform had this sort of burst and then fade shape to the curves. And I remind you, this is only 2 years ago. Now there's much more of, sure, the organic traffic comes in at the launch. A lot of hard work in understanding how to sustain that organic traffic into consistent and solid MAUs. And then you can see from the data that the paid acquisition increases over those first 3-4 months and only really gets maximized when you know that you've got a sustainable player base from organic traffic. So that interplay between the launch, working hard on the organic traffic, getting the game metrics to the point where it's actually worth investing in the UA, and understanding that you're pouring that budget into a fairly predictable machine in terms of the return on that investment. That's a big change, so that now that boom and bust cycle has gone dramatically, and these games metrics, they can increase and keep increasing after launch to very impressive levels. So what has the mid-tier games, if you talk about the games between position 100 and position 1000, done to get to this place in quite a short period of time. A lot of it is about, in our opinion, a lot of it is about how the players make the journey from outside the game to the game itself. So we can look at how people onboard into the game, and is it from organic traffic, is it from rewarded ads, is it from playable? What is their expectation as they come into the game, and what is the first session delivering in terms of addressing that expectation? That's an incredibly important part of it. What is their immediate value in terms of, what is their early session return going to be in terms of ad consumption and revenues through in-app purchase? And what is the long-term value going to be in the same way? The sophistication of the UA has grown as well. So 2016, it looked like there's about 3 paid campaigns running at a time. Now there's over 10, and it's just combinations of different suppliers, different formats, looking at installs and looking at CPIs, and actually very actively juggling the spend and optimizing the spend in a very dynamic way. Looking at also how you're targeting the UA. Is it via competitive games? Is it some other route? Cross promotion is a lot more prevalent now. So clients building up a portfolio of games, 4, 6, 8 games, and thinking about the player's journey as a multi-game experience. So detecting churn in one game and recommending the next best game, and keeping that player within your ecosystem, and also almost getting a couple of bites at the cherry from the same UA spend. That dramatically improves the profitability of the whole operation. And the sort of funnel analysis that's more commonplace now is actually detecting what is that experience coming from outside the game, from the UA spend into the game experience. And these are fairly typical averages across what we see on deltaDNA data, where playable works really well in terms of understanding the expectations of the players. It's so much more like what you're going to experience in the game, whereas rewarded video can be sometimes slightly misleading or slightly artificial in terms of the actual gameplay. So it's all about balancing where the value is coming from versus the spend, and these different acquisition sources and refinements on that is very important. Then we look at what the immediate value of the player is going to be, and this can be in terms of ad consumption. As I said before, our clients and the industry in general, I think, we're pretty cautious on ads, especially in early sessions. There's no particular reason to be, as long as the ads are well ingrained in terms of the gameplay. But looking at what the return on that investment can come from the early sessions and ads, looking at what the early conversion rates are going to be. And these sorts of metrics now are very commonplace and very important in terms of switching UA strategies and refining UA strategies quite quickly. And then LTV. A lot of LTV modeling happens now. We used to have default 90-day LTV models. Now we're rolling that out to 180 days, 360 days, because we genuinely are thinking about the player life cycle over that longer period of time and getting the payback. What is interesting is that if you think about the best performing games, the ones that are best performing actually are slower to get to profitability. They're patient and quite generous with the players, and that we have seen time and again reaps rewards in terms of the long-term engagement of the player and the experience that the players get. So definitely, having a game that has got a consistent momentum and reveals itself in a consistent way is the way to keep the players playing. So I'll skip through some of this more technical sort of LTV modeling. We'll share the slides and stuff on our website. But think it's really notable. I think it's quite incredible how quickly the industry's moved. I think it's been necessary, obviously, because we want a sustainable industry. We want to make sure that, you know, for free to play, it's a viable business model. You know, 3, 4, 5 years ago, there was investment coming into free-to-play studios. That then stopped for a couple of years. Now it's back, and now it's back because the revenues are predictable, the business model is sustainable, and it's because of these things, using the data, using the analytics, and using the insights to really make solid decisions about the economic model, and having a player-first approach to make sure that you're being responsive to the player and building those great experiences. So we kind of fast forward 12 months, what we think is going to happen based on these trends is that the big guys will still be at the top of the charts. They're not going anywhere, and they'll still be making the same amount of money. But the gap to the mid-tier and the lower positions in the charts, that is going to still close. There's lots more potential in these games. So you know, it might not be 1000x, it might be 10x. You know, there's going to be a lot more capability in terms of using data and analytics to really drive these decisions. It's going to become so much more commonplace to run your games using these techniques. So you don't need to have a vast UA budget. You don't need to have, you know, hundreds of millions of MAU. You can make a very profitable game with 1 million MAU plus, thereabouts. Build up a portfolio of games and start curating those players across the game portfolio. And it's all about, I think if there's one thing I want to leave you with, it's all about thinking about the player's journey across one game, but also multiple games, and seeing that relationship being a multi-game touch point. So that was it. Great advances in 2 years, smarter UA, better ad strategies, more patience and more engagement, good momentum in the games because the game designs and the free-to-play mechanics are much better appreciated, and access to toolkits that help make these decisions, and putting data analytics and this sort of discipline at the heart of the development and player management experience. So I hope that was interesting. Quick tour of the industry over the last 2 years. Thank you for listening.